Good morning, Eddie. I just want to check on the fitness of a few players. Firstly, Joe Willock, who was substituted in the second half at Ipswich, but he received treatment shortly before then. Is he okay? No injury?
As far as I know, he's fine. Yeah, I think on shooting, his head took a little bang to the floor, but I think he's fine.
How important to keep him fit for a prolonged spell, because he's had such a difficult couple of years being in and out of the team with multiple injury problems, and he'll want to run in the side, won't he?
Yeah, he will. I think you're absolutely right. To keep Joe fit for a sustained spell is now really important. I think he's done the hard work to get back fit after a really difficult time for him, and he's been missing a long, long time. So for him to get back to his very, very best levels, I think will take a period of regular games. But I think he's moving in the right direction now. So the last thing he needs is any kind of setback at this stage. Such an important player, brings his unique qualities. We want to keep him available.
How is Nick Pope doing?
He's doing okay, yeah. He was given a time frame initially where he had to rest. He's had a couple of injections in his knee. It's feeling better, it's feeling strong. Quite when he'll be fit is still a difficult one to give a definitive date on.
And lastly, on injuries and fitness, Emil Kraft, who you've been without for a few weeks with a nasty injury. How is he doing in his recovery, and when do you anticipate him being available? Yeah,
Emil's working well. His injuries it was a serious enough injury. I mean, he's had an operation, but he's now back on grass. He's running. And the big thing for him will be contact, and when we introduce him back into the type of training that, of course, will test the injury the most. But the good news is he's fit, running, and looking good.
Aston Villa then on Boxing Day. The match at St James's Park last season was a big victory for you. Both teams put a lot into it, certainly in terms of attacking football. What do you remember about that game and the way that your team performed?
Yeah, I think the first game of the season is always a big occasion. I think I remember both teams played well, actually. I thought Aston Villa played well. We, of course, played well with the goals that we scored, but it was a tight game. Don't think the scoreline necessarily reflected the competitiveness between both teams. I thought we had two good games, obviously, against Aston Villa last year, but I think we recognised the strength and the qualities that they possess. And, of course, the season they had last year was very good from their perspective. They've carried that one this year in the various competitions they're on, so I think it's going to be a really good challenge for us.
Just expanding on that last point, I know they had a difficult run of results until recently, but a big victory at the weekend over Manchester City. How well do you feel they have coped with the extra pressures and demands of having Champions League football on top of the domestic action? Yeah,
I mean, it is a big demand, as we know from last year. I think they've dealt with it very, very well. I think they've got good depth in their squad. They've got some really good players that they can pick and choose from, so they can rest players and take players in and out. But I think the way Unai gets his teams to play, their style is very difficult to play against. Very well coached, very well drilled. We expect a good game.
And lastly, you go into the post-Christmas set of fixtures in really good shape after the results and the performances. I know you're focusing firstly on Villa, but how significant do you feel the next couple of weeks will be with Villa, Manchester United, Tottenham, and then Arsenal coming up? Some big games for you.
Yeah, it's a big run of fixtures. I think every reason for us to be excited about those games off the back of the recent ones that we've played. I think we've hit a good, consistent run of form. I've been really pleased with how we've played within the games. Our style, our creative output's been much better. So I think we need to take that mentality into the next group.
Thanks, Reza. Alan, Sky Sports.
Morning, Eddie.
Morning.
Just following up, first of all, on injury. Joe Linton, is he likely to be back for Boxing Day?
Yeah, we hope so. I think we'll have a look at him today. He had various facial injuries after the last home game against Brentford, which he came off. A couple of stitches in and around his ear. So we'll see how he is today.
Do you enjoy this period? We talked about the exciting games coming up here. And obviously, when you're winning matches, it makes it seem a little bit easier.
Yeah, winning changes everything. I think I'll enjoy the Christmas period if we're successful. If we don't, then I probably won't. But I don't think that's different to any other time of year, to be honest, when you're in the line of work that we are.
confidence plays such a big part in football. I mean, look at Alexander Isak with his hat trick now. Do you see that exuding from players when these sort of things are happening, hat tricks for the first time for him?
Yeah, I think so. I think it just changes the players' feel and their emotions. I think the challenge for us is to try and get everyone in the best frame of mind possible. I think we've seen from the whole squad an improvement from the start of the season to now. I think we're in a much better place. But it's important that we don't get distracted, especially at this time of year. The focus is on the games. We've got some brilliant games on paper for everyone to really attack and to enjoy. But we'll only enjoy them if we're at our best.
Consistency is a word that's been used an awful lot in the city, I suppose. Yep. It's easier said than done, though, isn't it, to put together this run of results in such a tough Premier League? Yeah,
this year more than any other, it seems, and not just for us, but for most teams. I think we're seeing good results followed by indifferent results and spells of winning, spells of not winning. And I think we find ourselves grouped together with a lot of other teams in that respect. Now, the most successful teams this season, of course, are going to be the teams that find a way to win. Sometimes when you're not playing well, digging out results in difficult grounds and difficult places. So we're in that period where we are playing well and we want to keep that going. And try not to fall into the trap that we fell into in previous spells.
Do records mean anything to you against Aston Villa? I don't think you've lost at St James's Park since 2005 against Villa. And some great games and big results against them as well. Yeah,
I always think the previous games tell you something, but they don't tell you anything about what's going to happen in the future. We've seen different results going into future opponents, and I don't think they have any bearing on what's going to happen. So I think just for us, we've really enjoyed playing at home the last few games. I think our home performances in the main have been very good. So more of the same in that respect will be more than welcome.
So the players in training on Christmas Day, is that in the morning? Do they get time with their family after that, or have you got to convene and keep them together? Or?
No, we'll get them in training, of course, but we won't keep them for any longer than they need to be at the training ground, and then they can enjoy Christmas like everybody else.
And just finally from me, on the January transfer window, I think you said previously you've got to concentrate on the players that you have rather than looking externally. Do you still see that as being the case?
Yeah, I do. Until that reality is different. For me, it's always the same. Let's concentrate on the players we have. We have a very good squad. My job is to try and get the best out of every single person within that squad. That'll be my focus going into January. If that changes, then great. But if not, then we'll carry on working.
Thank you. Andy?
Morning, Eddie.
Morning, Andy.
You talk about the players Christmas Day. What about yourself once you get away from here? What's an Eddie Howe Christmas Day look like? Any Howe Christmas traditions in the family or not?
There's a couple of traditions, which I'll probably keep to myself. But no, it'd be very much, I'm sure, like everybody else's. I think there, of course, with a house of three boys, a dog, my wife, it will be focusing on the kids and making sure that they enjoy themselves, and very special Christmases, and we've enjoyed our Christmases up here as well. I think they've been really memorable for us. But of course, in the back of my mind is always the work and always the games, making sure the team's prepared. We've left no stone unturned in terms of our preparation. We treat every game the same, regardless of when it is.
We'll get back to football then. Alex Isak, you've been asked a lot about Alex, about just how good he is. But looking ahead, how much better does he need to be to kind of become the world's best, do you think? What extra does he need to add to his game now to kind of take him into that next level of a stratosphere?
Yeah, I think it's about just refining. I don't think it's changing. His game is very, very strong in almost every department. I don't see a weakness in his game. But I think it's refinement. It's shaving off the edges, trying to improve in the small areas that he can. And of course, I'm a big believer, as you know, on player development and the evolution of a player's game. So you can never be the same player for 2 seasons in a row. You have to find different ways to hurt the opponent, because teams, of course, with the analysis now, they find ways to try and deal with certain problems that you give them. So for Alex, that will be a constant thing that has to be in his game. But I think it is, and he's got that unpredictability that makes him very difficult to play against.
Alex obviously impressed on Saturday, as did Jacob Murphy once again. Does every squad need a Jacob Murphy?
Classifying it as a Jacob Murphy made me laugh. I think every squad needs players with those qualities. I mean, I've always said Jacob's very selfless. He's, of course, he's driven himself. He has individual ambitions, but he always plays for the team. Very unselfish. Really takes a buzz out of creating a goal, and he's always been that way, just as much as he does from scoring. And so his cross early in the game for our first goal, his back heel, of course, well talked about, and deservedly so, was an incredible piece of skill. So I think those qualities, yes, every squad needs.
And just finally, with the utmost respect to the Leicesters and the Ipswiches of the world, is it a game against a side like Villa, who, like Alan was saying, are coming into this one off the back of that Manchester City win? Is it games like this one that's really, truly going to tell you if this side is turning round its form right now?
To a degree, yeah. I couldn't disagree with that. I think we have to, as I said earlier, find a way to win against any opponent. And I think, by and large, our form this season against the teams that are doing well in the league has been pretty strong. But we haven't sort of done it in long periods. So for 3 games, the last 3 games has been great, but we need a longer period of wins to really climb the table and be where we want to be.
Thanks, Andy. Nisha?
Morning, Eddie.
Morning.
Just following on from what you talked about with Ray's about this busy run of fixtures. We've heard over the years lots of managers complaining about too many games over the festive period. But when you're in this kind of form, compared to last time when you had the international break, which did take the wind out the sails, are you particularly looking forward to such a busy run?
Yeah, I've always, as a player, I enjoyed the Christmas schedule, and as a manager, I'm exactly the same. I think they're unique games. I think the atmosphere is slightly different. And I think when you're playing at home, these games over the festive period are brilliant things to be a part of. So, yeah, we're looking forward to the games. And I think when you're in good form and playing well, you want the games to come. You're 100% right. We want the games to come thick and fast. But, of course, we have to do those games justice and perform the way that we have done.
So much has been said about the midfield 3 and, finally kind of hitting gold. But are you going to have to really manage the whole team with the volume of games?
Yeah, what we've decided to do is look at it a game-by-game basis. So last week was a 3-game week. Because of the scoreline in a couple of games, we were able to just ease players' minutes and manage the squad within the game. So then we felt the players were fresh enough to go again. So we'll do the same. We'll continue to do it on a game-by-game basis rather than making decisions beforehand on who we're going to rest.
And a word about Miley. How do you think he's responding to kind of getting back, getting involved with the first team? It's been a long road for him, and someone that's had an unbelievable journey over the last couple of years. Yeah,
he has. I think he's handling himself really well. He's training well behind the scenes. I think we've tried to be really careful with him and make sure there's been no reoccurrence of his injury. For someone so young and the demands that he faced last year, physical demands, we feel this year we needed to manage that and respect that and to make sure we give him the best chance of staying fit and look after him at such an early stage of his career. But he's looking good now, and I'd say physically he's looking stronger than last year. Naturally, he's worked hard in the gym. His body's turning into a man's body, and I'm really pleased with his progress. He couldn't have a much better midfield to kind of learn from. Do you see the more senior players kind of taking him under their wing as such? I wouldn't say necessarily taking him under their wing. I think Louis himself is very mature for his age. I think he's treated as a player, an individual player now, like a proper player. No one's had to take him under their wing because of how he's handled himself. He's not needed that reassuring presence above him. He's very individual, but very strong-willed. So no, but I think there's a lot of respect there internally in our midfield. You look at the players and the qualities that the 6 midfielders we have at the moment bring. It's a healthy competition. So I think they'll, as much as they'll look at Louis and think we want to help him and look after him, they know that he's snapping at their heels also to take their place.
And just finally, you asked about Christmas traditions at home, but what about here at the club? How have you been celebrating Christmas here? Have you done a Secret Santa or anything?
No, we've tried to stay away from that, I think, for obvious reasons. We've had a Christmas dinner. We've had a couple of club events, which have been really good. I know the players have been out and about, not obviously before games, but visiting Santa at various occasions. So I think the club have done a really good job in trying to look after the players' families and making sure everyone enjoys the festive spirit while not getting distracted.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nisha. Damien?
Morning, Eddie.
Morning.
Just going back to Alex, as a young player he scored goals, but not necessarily prolifically. What did you see in him that made you think he could score goals in the Premier League?
I think I looked at his game in depth as I do with every signing, because they have to have a vision of where they're going to fit into the team and how they're going to enhance our style of play. I think with Alex, his all-round game I felt was really strong, so he could do a little bit of everything. As you've seen him do for us, dropping deep to link play, being a creative link between our midfield and our attack, but also bring those standout qualities individually where he can make something happen out of nothing. I believed he had, from that one season where he scored a huge amount of goals in La Liga at such a young age, isn't easy to do, that I felt he had the goal-scoring prowess to deliver that into the Premier League, albeit there's always a slight question mark, because until you see it delivered in the Premier League with the physicality of this league, you never quite know how it transfers. And that's where I have to give him a huge compliment, because I think he's made that step from the various leagues that he's been in to come to the Premier League. I think he's done really well, and he's almost taken everything in his stride.
In some senses, has he surprised you how quickly he's taken to this league and this type of football?
I don't think he surprised me, because I think I really believed we wouldn't have committed the fee that we did to the transfer if we didn't believe that he could play and do well straight away. I think that for that sum of money, I don't think you're looking at a development player. You're looking at a player that you feel can come in straight away and hit the ground running. Now, he's done that, but he deserves a lot of credit for it, because it's not an easy thing to do, to transfer leagues in the way that he has. And I just hope it's a start for him. He's had a brilliant couple of seasons for us, and it looks like he's hitting his best rhythm now. He's such a valuable player for us. I think all the players look to him to help us in the creative side of the game, and he's delivering at the moment.
Thank you. Go to Lee, Dom, and then Chris.
Morning, Eddie. There's one story coming from Saudi Arabia this morning that there's a deal being agreed for Dubravka. Just wondered if you could respond to that.
Yeah, that's news to me. I mean, I've been aware of the rumours and the talk about that deal, but I don't think it's got to that point.
Okay. And just on the sort of the transfers, looking at it, obviously we've been told there's no pot of money to spend, and obviously you don't want to sell your best players. So how, after 2 windows, can you move things along and try and freshen it up even a little bit?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that one, to be honest. I don't know if freshening up the squad is something that we would necessarily look to do, because I think in the window that we have coming up, with the situation that we are in at the moment, freshening up's a dangerous word, because what does that mean? I think any player that we bring into the football club's got to have value. It's got to have value short term or long term. And of course, we don't want to destabilise the squad by losing players either. So it could be a case that we do nothing this January, and we move on to the summer.
And just on Jamal Lascelles, we haven't heard a lot from his comeback. He was in the stands watching the reserves the other night, so he's obviously still very focused. Yeah,
he's very focused. We always said he's a bit behind Sven. Sven had no complications at all in his rehab, and as much as they're always difficult injuries. The long-term knee injuries are always very difficult, and you have your ups and downs. Sven was pretty standard. Jamal's had a couple of, I wouldn't say setbacks, but a couple of moments where his knee's not felt as strong. And it will just take a little bit longer than Sven did. But he's on track, and he's doing well. I've got to say, his dedication Sometimes he's been here till 5, 6 o'clock at night, and that's on a regular basis. That's the dedication that he's giving to his comeback, and I'm sure he'll reap the rewards from that.
Thanks, Lee. Dom?
Morning, Eddie.
Morning.
Sven Botman, sticking on that subject, played 60 minutes last week for the 21s. You've mentioned practice games for him. Just how close is he to being back involved in the matchday squad, and could we see him on Boxing Day?
Yeah, he's getting closer. Pleased with how he's been in the last couple of weeks. So he's had various tests, whether that's in training or from the games that you mentioned. So came through another practice match at the weekend on Saturday. Did well, looking good. So yeah, it'll be a case of deciding when we reintroduce him to the squad.
Dan Burns, a player you've regularly praised this season. He's been a very consistent performer. How do you go about reintroducing Sven back into the starting lineup?
That's always the question, isn't it? I think without a doubt we need a player of Sven's quality in the squad. So we'll welcome him back with open arms. But of course the challenge for Sven is to earn his place back. It's certainly not going to be given, and that would be the same for anybody. I think when you've had such a long-term injury, there will be a period where Sven will have to work back to his best level. But that's the same for everybody. But it's great to have competition for places. That's what we've missed.
Thanks, Dom. Chris?
More, Eddie, just following up on the reports about Martin Dubravka. I mean, is that an exit you could sanction at the moment, given Nick Pope's injury, or is that something you wouldn't consider while Nick Pope's out injured?
Well, certainly we wouldn't want to lose the goalkeeper that's playing for us currently. That wouldn't make sense. So no, that isn't a deal that we would want to sanction currently.
And if and when Nick comes back and it was something you would consider, could you bring in another goalkeeper, or would it be a case of, do you have the capacity to do that if you were to lose someone?
Well, these are questions that we have to find answers to. As I say, the Martin situation isn't clear cut. Let's wait and see what happens in the next few weeks. But he's certainly doing very well. I've been really pleased with his reintroduction into the team. I think he's given us a calmness, a composure. He's made a couple of really good saves. Let's not forget the one he made at 1-0 against Ipswich. It was a big moment in the game. So delighted with how he's playing. And he's in goal for us at the moment and doing a great job.
Thanks, Chris. We've got Craig, Jordan and Kieran.
Morning, Eddie.
Morning.
A subject we've explored a lot in the last few weeks is where the club is currently at, in the wider context of a PSR world, and you expressed that very eloquently 7 days ago. By extension, and this isn't specific to one player in particular, how do you keep those top stars at the club when, by an admission, the journey has been slowed because of some external factors? How do you keep them happy, and how do you keep them here?
Well, I think the challenge for the team is to be successful. So I think a successful team, everything's easier across the board in every respect. So the challenge for me is to try and push the team to those heights. Now we're in the semi-final of the cup competition. That's a massive thing for everybody on the horizon. That brings real positivity. Our league form's improving. If we can continue to improve, I think we put ourselves in a good position. So I think everything's linked to that, really. Now, of course, away from the football, we have a duty to look after the players, to treat them well, to give them the environment that they really enjoy. And of course, then there's other stuff behind that in terms of their contracts. So it's a multi-linked thing, but I think on the pitch is the most important.
And this is a similar sort of subject, and it was a story this morning that might make you smile, but Bournemouth are in line to qualify for the Champions League, given they're currently 5th in the Premier League, and the coefficient has 5th as having the Premier League getting an extra place next year. Is that an incentive for you guys? Is that something you look at, given you are only 2 points off 5th now? And one of the answers to the question I've just asked is probably, well, if you're in the Champions League, that ticks that box for a lot of players. Is that something you're looking at 5th place?
Yeah, that's linked to the answer that I just gave you. I think success on the pitch is everything. We said last year we want European football in any respect. But of course the Champions League is the one that everyone wants more than anything else. So we will give our best to have the best season that we can. I don't see any reason why we can't be very successful this year. Yes, you need a little bit of luck and sense of injuries and keeping the squad together in that respect. But the team looks really good at the moment. I think the balance is strong. So we just want the games to come and to try and win as many as we can.
Thanks, Craig. Jordan?
Morning. Just another one on Lewis Miley. Has he returned a better player this season? I know it's probably difficult to make that judgment because he hasn't played as many minutes as you would like, but based on what you've seen in training, is he better than the player he was last season?
As you say, it's a difficult one to answer, but I don't see any reason why he wouldn't be. I mean, he's definitely physically in a much better place than he was, and that's just through development of his muscles and his body as he gets into that transition phase from, as I say, 17 to 18. It's a big age for any young man. I think technically, tactically, I think he will naturally improve because he'll just becoming a little bit more wiser and streetwise about the game. But he's still got the same qualities. I've seen that in training. His passing range, his calmness on the ball, decision making for such a young player really sets him apart. So I'd love to think he'd be in a really good place. Now, of course, he'll need games to find his rhythm. That's going to be difficult to guarantee him at the moment with the strength of our midfield. But certainly he's going to play a part in the short-term and the long-term future for us. He's such an important player.
And just one on Tino as well. How much has he developed this season? Because obviously you've got Kieran Trippier fit there, but it's probably credit to Tino that he's been able to keep Kieran out of the team.
Yeah, I thought Tino, the last few games, has really played well. Very, very pleased, especially Ipswich. I thought his technical delivery was a really high level. I thought they were very good down the right-hand side with him and Jacob in tandem together. I always think relationships in the team are so important. You go back to a couple of years ago, the relationship between Kieran, Miggy, Jacob, Sean was so strong down the right-hand side for us. And I think then through injury, we've had to find a couple new solutions down that side. It takes a little bit of time to build those relationships, but I think we've seen in recent weeks a really strong partnerships emerging. Really pleased with Tino's development. Physically, he's looked really, really good as well, so very happy with him.
Thanks, John. Kieran?
Morning.
Morning.
We've seen for so long the same teams finishing in the top 4 and the top 6. Newcastle and Aston Villa have disrupted that. Do you feel there are forces at play that maybe don't want to see that happen again?
So, say that last bit.
Do you feel there are forces at bay that want to stop that happening again, obviously with the rules and what have you?
I'm sure there's people that don't want that to happen again, but I think the beauty of the Premier League this year is you never quite know what's going to happen. You've seen, as we said earlier, teams find it difficult to string consistent runs of results together, and as I say, not just us. We've seen Nottingham Forest, Bournemouth, loads of teams have really, really strong seasons. The level of the Premier League, and I've said this consistently, has been really tight this year between all teams. I don't think there's a lot of difference between the top and the bottom sides, and that's testament and quality of every team in the league, and there's no easy games. I think that makes a great spectacle. I think it makes it a great league because you never know what's going to happen. You never know what twists and turns are ahead. And I think it's up for all of us to try and, break into whatever group of teams, try and upset people and achieve success.
So you don't see it as a closed shop?
I never see anything as a closed shop. I think it's our job to just try and achieve the most that we can, put no barriers on our levels or our expectations of ourselves internally, and see what happens.
Okay, concludes this part of the press conference. We'll move it on for Boxing Day's papers. This is embargoed till 10:30 p.m. on Christmas night. We'll start with Damien.
And just on Sandro, obviously his first year or so he was very difficult for obvious reasons. But now he's in the team and playing really well. How have you seen him grow on and off the pitch?
I think the best qualities of Sandro is that he doesn't, as I've said many times, he doesn't really give too much away. So even in this spell where he's playing superbly well, I've been really, really happy with how he's looked in the team. I'd still say he's the same Sandro that he was last year when he couldn't play and he was banned. In terms of his general conduct and feeling around the training ground, it's the same. And I think that's what I'm trying to say is that's a quality that last year he brought to us. You know, he was very low maintenance, a player that you can't use in games, but you can only train. He was incredibly helpful to the players that were playing, incredibly supportive of them. And he's carried that on this year where now he's obviously available and playing very well, but those qualities still exist. He's still a very good teammate. He's still caring about the other players. Can't speak highly enough of how he's conducted himself.
Thank you. Craig and then Lee.
Yeah, sticking with Sandro as well, Eddie. Now, one of the comparisons drawn is Andrea Pirlo. Andrea Pirlo didn't actually become the player we know until his late 20s. Sandro now is slotting into that 6 role and looks like the conductor. Can you just talk about that comparison? Do you see that likeness, and just Sandro playing that role where he's orchestrating everything right now?
Yeah, definitely. When I first saw Sandro play, there was definite links to Pirlo, without a doubt. And it's not just the hair, you know. There's more to it than that. But he's definitely got those similar qualities in terms of build and style. But I think the thing that set Sandro apart for me from anyone else was he could do all of those things technically and tactically look really good, but it's his athleticism as well, his ability to run. And I think we've seen that in recent games from a defensive viewpoint now more than an attacking viewpoint, where he's breaking to, you know, as in sprinting to put out fires for us from a defensive viewpoint, nicking balls, intercepting balls, using athleticism to track runners. I think he's been excellent in that respect, and I think that's really helped the team. So, yes, I think there is the obvious ones in terms of his technique and his passing and everything else, but I think that's the thing that sets him apart.
Lee?
Eddie, just on Kieran Trippier, last January he had an opportunity to go to Bayern Munich. He's now on the bench for Newcastle. I mean, how do you keep? I know he's a big professional, but how do you keep him motivated? Because surely he may look back at that and think that was a big chance for us to go and play with Harry Kane over in Germany.
Yeah, I don't think anything's as clear cut as that. I think he's a very, very valuable member of the squad. Really highly respected by all of us, and he's an outstanding player now. Yeah, he's just worked his way back from a couple of injuries that he's had. And he's still, I would say, still working his way back to his absolute best fitness levels. I'd say he's fit enough to play, no doubt about that, but he's still working his way back because he just hasn't had the football to sort of underline those physical qualities. But there's no doubting him when he's come on the pitch in the last few games. I think his technical quality has been very high as always, and that's what sets him apart. He's a very rare fullback. There's not many like him that can assist and create in the way that he does with both crosses and with long-range passing. So he's incredibly respected by us and wanted by us. So I have no doubt that he could easily get back into the team and have a long run in the team, and that's how good he is. So I don't see it quite like the question.
Yeah, fair enough. And on Bruno, it feels the last 2 or 3 games he really has grown into that role now. He's really learning the role as he's going along.
Yeah, I think there'll be an element of that where it is very, very different for him. I think as the deeper player, you're receiving the ball usually, sometimes with your back to goal, but majority of the time you might be side on and facing the opponent's goal. But definitely higher up, it changes. The dimensions of the pitch change. How you receive the ball changes. The expectations on you change physically. It's a much bigger physical demand. But I think he's responded really well to it, highlighted probably by his assist, where he's really high up the pitch, winning the ball back and assisting Alex with a really good press. I think he's done that part of the game really well. So very pleased with his attitude and to the change. You have to get the player to buy in, and he's been absolutely first class with that.
Okay, thank you everybody. Have a lovely Christmas.
Thank you.
See
Yeah,
you
Merry
next day.
Christmas
Thank you.
everyone. Have a good one.